Welcome to my show about amazing people to know. Creativity is tough, but this is Artsy Fartsy things and stuff. So sit back and chill. Maybe we can all learn a new skill. You can never get enough of Artsy Fartsy things and stuff.
Hello. Please forgive the interruptions and the low quality of this production. Everything here is done during the age of the pandemic, and our interviews are done via the internets, and they are problematic. So please forgive the beeps and blurps and stutters and skips and things like that, because it's the best we can do in the pandemic.
Hello, and welcome to the first ever episode of Artsy Fartsy Things and Stuff, a podcast about creative people doing creative things just for you. My name is Brian A. Bernhard, aka B.A. Weirdo. I am the creator and mad scientist, chief creative weirdo behind Embrace the Weird, a lifestyle brand for weirdos based on my original weird art designs. I have a small art gallery in San Pedro called Embrace the Weird, inside an art market called Crafted, which is an awesome creative place for all kinds of awesome creative people. This podcast is going to be kind of global since we're all stuck in the pandemic age of sitting in our studios and our offices and wherever we call home, unable to go out and reach out to people. So I'm doing it virtually, digitally, right here and now, using this podcast to connect. This first episode, the premiere episode, the first interview that I've done for this podcast, is a good friend of mine named Tom Greder, an amazing itinerant theater artist, actor, director, teacher, producer, the whole nine yards. This guy is he's brilliant, and he's sensitive, and he understands the subtleties of just true, brilliant, creative output. He basically is a sort of nomadic, traveling theater teacher guy who has made a career out of doing what he loves. I want to share some of his positive, brilliant, beautiful energy with you guys. So sit back, relax, and enjoy an interview with Tom Greder.
Thanks, Brian. Look, it's nice to be on the podcast, and nice to see you again, even though it's only virtual after all these years since New Orleans. Look, I'm doing pretty much the same stuff as I have been for 32 years now, just different. So I'm still either running towards something or away from something, probably a bit of both. Just trying to be creative. I guess I'm a very fortunate person, born under very fortunate circumstances, born here in Switzerland and raised in Australia. And I think one of the good things that my father imparted on me was a sense of obligation to use that good fortune. I'm not talking about necessarily financially here. I'm just talking about the experiences, the education, who I was born, and do something with it. And I think for the last 33 years, I've been just trying to find out what I'm running towards or running from, and getting a bit closer. Interactive theatre's always really been my interest, and traveling, exploring, discovering new places in the world. So I guess that's why I'm an itinerant artist, in that my work takes me all over the world, and I look for work that takes me there. I like to work with different cultures, different people, but mostly I love traveling. I love being alone or being lost in the world somewhere, discovering stuff. But it's the interactive forms of theatre that really interest me very much, particularly for people who maybe don't go to the classical theatre or the opera or the ballet. Take it to the people that need culture the most, the people that have got the most to gain from theatrical experiences. And interactive, because I believe people are not just prepared to consume theatre, they're ready to make it. They actually should be making it. They should be rediscovering a sense of play, rediscovering their creativity. That's what I focus on in solo shows, duo shows, those directing things that I do right wherever possible.
And I guess the elephant in the room is we're in the pandemic crisis that is globally in a way connecting real human on the planet, right? As a traveling performing artist, I imagine that's ground what you were maybe a month ago to a abrupt halt. So how has that gotten your amazing creative brain about moving forward? Because like you're a bit of a creative, so I know that you just kind of take shit lying down. So
it's interesting. Take shit lying down. I take it the way it comes after 31 years of being in the creative game as a profession and as a passion. I'm far more a passionate person than I am an ambitious person, in that passion serves you, but you serve ambition. So in 32 years I've been traveling the world and doing this. I've seen art, I've seen theatre shift and evolve as it has to. Art is always on the run. It's the first wave. It shows what's coming up for the rest of us. So I've seen a few things shift and change. I'm getting older myself. I see the new generations coming up with amazing stuff, the whole internet technology, virtual stuff, all of this boom stuff. So in some ways I do take stuff lying down, and I just continue to entertain my folly, to try to find new things that fascinate and interest me deeply. And the creative process is a deep thing. It's not a thought thing. It has to access all of your palette, all of your things, from the baggage that we inherit as kids to our deepest desires and our deepest fears. It's accessing stuff that you may not be aware of. Just finding how can I access those things and make myself aware of them. So I have been active. I'm doing a lot of work these days as a bit of an elder statesman on various committees and organisations in Switzerland, for schools and also for street performers, for circus artists. So we're looking at ways of capitalising on the extra time that artists all of a sudden have, and seeing if we can't prepare for the next change, which will happen after this pandemic is over, or once it shifts, is what will art like then?
So, yeah, it's it's an interesting conundrum, I think, for all of us. I'd like to talk a little bit about one of your projects, which is an amazing piece of street theater, the Panorama Kino Theater. I was taking a look at that, and that was one of the projects that you have collaborating with Jessica Arpin on. And I want to try something which I haven't done before, and I think I have the ability to on this Zoom platform. I'd like to play a snippet of your reel, and if you could talk us through what we're looking at, just like sort of narrate it a little bit. So I'm going to do a screen share and then play the video and see what happens. So let's figure this. This could be interesting. Let's see, desktop 1, Chrome.
No, it's interesting because the Panorama show works with a lot of people, the public, and it's very interactive. So at the moment, it's really not something to be doing. I'll be interested to see what happens after the pandemic, whether people are still really averse to being together or whether they have a desperate need to be together. It can go both ways.
All right. So here we go. I'm playing your theater, Kino Theater here.
Okay. Well, what it is it's a 4x3 meter pop-up structure that 24 people go in. We sell tickets, or we give tickets out. And the screen opens but it's not a screen, it's just a window to the outside world. And all the actors, we usually work with a group between 5 and 7 actors. They're responsible for integrating the audience and the public outside to create 15-minute scenarios. So all the people that line up and don't get to go in are invited to go backstage, and there is a backstage connected, to put on costumes and to get a briefing from our specialist actors who are just great interactive staff and are getting people in. So here we see Baptiste getting the people to go with him. There's Jessica there. I guess it's the 15 minutes of fame concept in one way for all the people outside.
So you've effectively turned your audience into your performers, and like, well, you split the audience in half becomes the audience and half becomes the performers, but there's like this duality. So it's like people are looking on the theater and they're also looking out of the theater.
Yeah, look, it deconstructs a whole lot of stuff, yeah. But when you say half and half, no, only 20 go in. This particular video is in Barcelona at a big festival, and we had anything up to 800 people outside. So it's a big challenge for us at the same time to go from classic film terms an establishment shot where the first rotation around it, because it rotates around its own axis. That's the other thing about it.
Pretty cool.
It's an establishment shot. So here we are in the park in Barcelona. It's only after that first rotation that we start to integrate people. We start to get them to do things, whether it's all wearing party hats or starting to dance. We also have, or wherever we go, we usually invite dance companies or dance schools to come and volunteer and help us out. So after 10 minutes, all of a sudden, there's these professional Lindy Hop dancers or ballroom dancers in full costume joining the scene. And of course, for the people inside, it's just quite astounding. For the people outside, once they start to realise what's going on, because they're en masse, they're all together, they just love, everyone loves to be in a show, just not alone. So we make sure that they all feel that they're part of something big. And it's delightful. I was inspired at the idea in New York, actually. On the Highline Park, there's a little amphitheatre up there with a sort of a concrete wall, and there's a little lumen, a little hole cut out at the back, where you can see part of Manhattan. And I was there going, wow, that's great. That you frame something makes it interesting. It says this is framed, so this is interesting. And of course, if you think it's interesting, you'll find the interest. And so there I was, and I thought, I'll just move over a little bit, see what else I can see. And the inspiration just hit me. How can I make a show out of this? How can I frame the world? And that's another thing in this virtual reality age and all this technology stuff. Life's beautiful. World is beautiful. So that's another thing I've been interested in as an artist, is bringing beautiful things back. We see enough horror and grief and stress, and particularly nowadays. So where are the beautiful things? And so often the people that come out of Panorama, the ones that are inside, will come out, and the first thing they do is they look around. Maybe at a city that they've lived in all of their lives, discover the colour, the texture, they're just interested. They had the world remystified for them. And that's a really good achievement. I didn't know whether it was going to work, and it was a 2-year project to get funding and design it, because it was the only one in the world. The first time I sat in it, the curtain opened, I went, bingo. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Europe in general seems to be considerably more accepting of like sort of this like an outdoor street theater in a much more main way than the U.S. is. Like we have street performers here, and they get a small crowd, but they don't, like the crowds that you were getting in that Kino Theater in that performance in Barcelona, considerably bigger than most street performances that I've seen, even in like the middle of Union Square. So and it has something to do with like this is a physical structure. It looks professional. People are attracted to it. Like, you're doing amazing things. When it's rotating, that's a big spectacle, you know. But I mean, it would be amazing to see what a tour of that theater would do in America. Like, you know, and granted, it's a really expensive concept to pull off, but like, you know, like I would love if that kind of traveling nomadic theater experience would work. But you know, it's like so big here, and towns where it would work in are so far apart that, you know, it clearly problematic, but it would be amazing.
Well, now, look, the USA is fascinating in a theatrical sense because it has a huge and a very rich tradition of theatre. Vaudeville, dance, Alvinelli Dance Theatre Company, all these sorts of amazing performing companies. Of course, it has Hollywood, you know, so it has a strong aesthetic sense. It has a strong theatrical sense. Well, it is a very theatrical country in more than just the theatre that it makes. Not least of all now.
Oh yeah,
it's either comedy or tragedy or a little bit of both. But
I wish it was a happy medium. It's right now it's a weird, it's unbalanced in not the best ways.
I'll tell you an anecdote that may help explain things. There was an American, I was performing at a festival up in Germany, and an American performer who was a friend of another performer there came to visit. And at dinner that night, he said, "It's just amazing. I've seen about 50 performances today, and I get the impression that there's hundreds or a few thousand performing artists traveling around Europe, doing wonderful shows, sometimes not, but doing shows, making a living, but they're not famous. In America, you have to be famous, otherwise you just don't make it." So I'm not exactly sure what America should maybe focus on a little bit or get back to grassroots, but they have also some fantastic festivals, you know, where this sort of stuff like Panorama does happen. It's just a very small percentage of the population. I remember the Fringe Festival of New Orleans, you know. They really liked what I did there. They hadn't seen anything like it. That's the European tradition, the Commedia dell'arte, the travelling troops that would go to the court of France to be employed by the French kings and royalty to entertain them. We have cultures very close together here. So we're interested in what's going on across the border. So these groups would travel around and just a different historical upbringing, I guess, a different cultural focus.
Penn and Teller is kind of like what, you know, the mainstream populace, they know Penn and Teller. They're kind of a send up of old school vaudeville, you know, they're but again, they're famous and there's not a whole lot of them working at that level. Now there is a sort of a mid-level career vaudevillian type of artist that does exist country, but they are very, very not close to the mainstream, and most of them are bootstrapping their hoods, but they exist. And there are some people that can make a living at it. They don't make necessarily a comfortable living, you know. Most of them have side hustles. And it's, you know, it is weird. There is like a lot of riches for incredibly famous people. Sometimes those people become famous not because of what they do, but because of some like happenstance situation that just puts them in the spotlight, and all of a sudden become known for this thing that they might have done once. It's I guess needle in a haystack, winning the lottery in many ways.
It's the screen. As I said, America had a fantastic vaudeville tradition and also circus, you know, had a fantastic one. And then Hollywood came along. Now, the film industry in Europe is certainly there, but it wasn't not in any way as overpowering and as a dominant force in entertainment as Hollywood became in the States. So I think that really set a particular standard or set a bar and a particular set of expectations that people had.
I also think a lot of the Vaudevillians back in the day, like when there was a legitimate vaudeville circuit here in the States, they traveled by rail car, which was the trolley system. Not trains as we know it today, but like the trolleys, which were considerably more affordable and considerably more vast. Like there was a trolley system that connected all the major cities in this country.
Wow.
So you could get from point A to point B, from one city to the next city very cheaply. And back during the industrial age, when Ford and GM started turning the United States into a car culture, they famously bought all trolley rail systems and
shut them down,
destroyed them. Like there's a photograph that you can find of a giant pile of trolley cars in the desert on fire with Ford and shaking hands in front of it, like they've done a great job. And there's like a ton of trolley cars that were just thrown out into the ocean, like on the coast of California. And like that, the inability for performers to get around at an affordable cost, and the film industry, I definitely like making it so people like can walk to their local theater. The thing, I think that definitely like that was like a sort of a 1-2 punch, like fast knockout for like that traveling nomadic culture performer that can go to the small town. And I think that also hurt those small towns by not allowing them to engage with the arts anymore, that, you know, like in that way. Like theater, it's almost impossible even today for a theater artist or an audition or any kind of an artist, a fine artist, to go to small town America to do anything, you know, like so small town America doesn't get the benefit or reap the benefits from any of the other cultural things. It's now so far removed from that you know they don't care anymore, because they don't even know what they're, you know, I mean, granted, there are always gray areas, and people are like, you know, the people that want it look for it on the internet, but the internet does not provide income to the theater artist who makes the thing to try and get to share a real life experience. So when go ahead.
It's also not what theater artists want to do. A lot of theater artists don't want to be famous on YouTube.
Right.
They want to perform with a real audience and have that transportive experience. But you just mentioned something that, you know, the depth of maybe small theatre stuff or interactive theatre or troupes. Cirque du Soleil started as a street theatre company in San Francisco, you know, or Seattle, I think, and then they moved down there and they got picked up, and then the rest is history. But I think find a hole and fill it is both a business principle and a creative principle as well. So me and many other people all over the world got through the initial maybe fear of this pandemic. Okay, let's think about me. I've got to knuckle down. I've got to do my shopping. I've got to get myself, you know, at home. And after some time, we started breathing out, and we started, you know, people all over the world are now starting to reach out towards you with Zoom or whatever it happens to be. Artists are coming up with new concepts, ways of working together. There's online choirs. Everyone's just in a different part of the world singing. So creative, you know. So this is a huge opportunity to fill a void. And because many people in the world are incredibly isolated now with social distancing, with all this sort of stuff and fear, they're perhaps more acutely aware of what they're missing now. contact with other people. So again, there may be an opportunity to capitalize on that and to reintroduce a lot of this sort of stuff. For example, there's an initiative here celebrating its 4th year. This is a town here in Switzerland called Biel. There's about 55,000 people living here. And the old town, the old part of town, it's 1600 and something, beautiful old town, small, was dead. There was nothing going on there, just people living there, and what a shame. So they introduced a concept called First Friday. The first Friday of every month, all the shops are allowed to stay open. As a performer, you can go and perform there. The city gives permission. You don't have to ask permission. Bands, poetry slam stuff, outdoor cinema, whatever you want to do. And the people are still 4 years later intact, because people really miss hanging with each other, being with each other. There's now little red squares where if you want to use your mobile phone, your cell phone, sorry, you've got to go and stand in the red square. There's smoking squares and
That's
cell
hilarious.
phones.
That we have California is big on their like Fridays, second Thursdays, like they do a lot of these like sort of art walks, which I think they're great for the artist community, and the like most of them are tied around the local art galleries, and so the local art galleries will like open the doors a little later. And then in the city where I have my gallery at in San Pedro, they line the streets up with like 100 gourmet food trucks. And the food trucks are really what draw the people out for these things. And then they get to see the art around that, that's definitely, it wasn't so much that way in New York when I was there, but in California, the art walk thing because the weather is better out here.
But it's interesting with the food trucks. It's probably much more successful that way than if they had, 100 artists.
Oh yeah,
putting them up, because everyone eats. Not everyone goes to see art. But if you draw, and of course I'm sure the vans, this pop-up sort of situation must look fantastic, smell fantastic, it tastes fantastic. But with this hot dog, you also get a serving of art. It's just over there. Have a look while you're at it. You're not preaching to the choir, which is one of the major objectives I think most artists have, is to reach new audiences, is to convert new audiences, new countries, new cities, new towns. I mean, when I first started touring the world, the biggest rush I got was always going somewhere like Poland, Russia, that hadn't seen any of this stuff in a long, long time, and the people hadn't seen anything like it, but they were so forwards about it. They wanted it. They wanted to come, and see the stuff. And it was very intrepid, beautiful. So good on sounds like a great project. I just interpreted Moby Dick, which is a classic American. It's a solo show. It's going to Hong Kong this year. Oh, no, it's not. It was going to Hong Kong this year. Hong Kong next year. And Taiwan. But anyway.
Maybe the dual version of it. Look into like Oculus Rift VR or something.
No, yeah, but I've had fun developing that. It's a solo show. The audience makes all the sound effects. They turn into sailors, row the boat, and all this sort of stuff. So that's a lot of fun. But show the Panorama thing. I'm really, really proud of it. Now, the only other thing I wanted to say is a big message to everyone out there is to be creative, is to use this opportunity, not to look at getting back to the way things were, but get back to a much better place. Whatever that means, wherever you live, in whatever communities, whatever needs those communities have, and your families and your friends and the people you love, okay, fill the holes. This is also an opportunity, as tragic and as full of grief as it is, and it's catastrophic. Don't just rest on that. Let's honour the people who have paid the ultimate price, and their families. Let's honour them by coming up with a world that's a better place, no matter how much, but let's make it a better place. So be creative, and don't think your way to being creative. Just follow your gut, follow your head, put it all together, the whole palette of who and what you are.
Well, all right. Thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching this first episode of Artsy Fartsy Things and Stuff, featuring the brilliant Tom Greder as my first guest. I would like to thank everybody for listening, and if you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to us on all the video platforms and audio platforms and channels and things and stuff and all the things. Do that so we can continue to exist. I'm gonna put up a page on Patreon, support us there. I'd like to be able to keep this thing going. I'd like to interview all the creative genius people that we could possibly think of to create, like to interview. I've got a pretty good amount of connections. If you have people that you'd like me to interview and feature on this show, please introduce me to them. It'll be awesome. So in the meantime, stay safe, keep your masks on, stay healthy, wash your food, wash your hands, do all the things that you need to do to stay safe in this crazy, weird-ass pandemic. I love you. Good night.
This show is brought to you by Embrace the Weird, a lifestyle brand for weirdos. From original crazy t-shirt designs to handmade eccentric earrings, they have everything you need to embrace your inner weirdo. Please visit embracetheweird.design for more.
Support this show. Patreon, please support this show. And buy some merch, please support this show. On Patreon, please support this show.